The alien marketplace was hot, crowded, and filled with strange smells. Merchants shouted in many languages, selling odd machines, glowing fruits, and even small creatures in cages. Humans were rare here, and Darren knew he stood out. Still, he walked slowly, carefully watching, as if something was pulling him forward. He had traveled across stars, fought in battles, and faced storms on dead planets. But today felt different. He wasn't looking for a fight or treasure. He was looking for something he couldn't name. At the corner of the market, where the shadows were deep and the lights flickered weakly, Darren heard a soft voice. "Please, just one piece of food," the voice said, small and trembling. He turned and saw her, sitting alone, wrapped in a gray cloak, her face hidden behind a torn veil. She looked small, almost fragile, like a ghost that had forgotten how to stand. "No one touches her," a nearby merchant growled. "She's not clean." Darren raised an eyebrow. "Sick?" "Worse," the merchant spat. "Cursed, some say. Others say she's bad luck." The merchant moved away quickly, not wanting to stay near her. But Darren didn't walk away. He stepped closer, dropping a small piece of flatbread near her feet. The girl froze, then slowly reached out a hand, thin, shaking, with glowing blue lines on her fingers. As soon as she touched the bread, the lights around her flickered. A deep hum echoed in the ground beneath their feet. People stopped and stared, whispering. "She activated it," someone gasped. "Only marked blood does that," another hissed. Darren didn't move. He looked at her closely. He couldn't see her eyes, but something about her presence made his chest tighten. She held the bread close, whispering a thank you, but still wouldn't lift her veil. "What's your name?" Darren asked. "Mira," she whispered, her voice like a feather in the wind. She turned her head away. "Oh, I'm not clean, you should leave." But Darren sat down beside her, ignoring the looks from the crowd. "I don't believe in curses," he said calmly. "Then you're a fool," Mira said, though there was no anger in her voice, only sadness. As the sun began to fall behind the market walls, the shadows grew longer. Suddenly, cloaked figures appeared at the edge of the marketplace. Tall, silent, with silver masks. They moved like hunters, scanning the crowd. Mira's breath caught, and she ducked low, pulling her veil tighter. "They're here," she whispered. "They've come for me." "Who are they?" Darren asked, his hand already near his blaster. "Collectors," she said. "I ran from them. I was supposed to be taken, locked away forever." The silver-masked figures came closer, stopping near where Darren sat. One of them sniffed the air and turned toward Mira. Darren tensed, ready to fight, but the figure simply tilted its head, then moved on. They hadn't noticed her. Not yet. As the hunters disappeared into the crowd, Darren looked at Mira. "You're not staying here," he said. "I have nowhere else," she replied. "You do now," he answered, standing up and holding out his hand. Mira hesitated, then placed her small glowing hand in his. The marketplace behind them stayed loud and cruel, but the shadows around Mira finally began to lift. They walked through narrow alleys, away from the noise of the market. Mira kept her head down, veil tight, afraid of every sound. Darren walked beside her without speaking, just watching. He could feel her fear like cold air around her body. They reached a quiet place between two broken towers, a ruined corner of the city where only silence lived. Darren started a small fire and gave Mira more food. She didn't speak, just nodded and ate slowly. "Why are they chasing you?" Darren asked, finally breaking the quiet. Mira hesitated, then whispered, "Because I was born wrong." He raised an eyebrow. "Wrong how?" She touched her chest through the cloak. "They say I carry blood that should not exist." Darren looked at her hands again, remembering the glowing lines. "They fear you," he said. "They fear what I might become," she replied softly, "or what I might remind them of." The firelight danced on her veil. Her eyes were hidden, but her voice carried deep pain. "My people used to believe in royal blood," she explained. "Special ones who could control the old machines, speak to the stars, heal the broken. But those bloodlines were wiped out long ago," she continued. "And if someone like me appears, they say it brings war." Darren listened carefully. "You think it's true?" he asked. Mira looked away. "I don't know. All I know is that when I was 5, the lights in my village started to blink when I cried. My parents gave me to the elders, and I never saw them again. Her hands trembled as she remembered. They locked me away, taught me to cover myself, to hide my face, my hands, my voice. I was trained to be invisible, she whispered, because they feared I would shine. Darren moved closer, not touching, just sitting near. What do you want? He asked gently. Mira was quiet, then finally said, I want someone to see me and not be afraid. I want to exist with what being a problem. The wind blew softly, pushing the corner of her veil just slightly. Darren caught a glimpse of skin, not dirty, but glowing like soft moonlight. He didn't gasp, didn't flinch. He only said, I see you. Mira turned toward him, surprised. You're not afraid? She asked. No, he replied. I've seen monsters, and I've seen beauty. You're not the first, and you're definitely not the worst. Mira smiled faintly, though he couldn't see it. You're strange, she whispered. Human, he said with a grin. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked through the air. A scanner drone flew above, flashing red lights. Mira's body went stiff. They found me, she said in a shaking voice. Darren stood quickly, grabbing his small laser pistol. Come on, he said, grabbing her hand. They ran into the deeper ruins, shadows chasing them. As they ducked into a broken building, the drone scanned the area. Mira pressed her hand against a cracked wall. The stone glowed faintly, and a hidden door opened behind them. Darren looked at her, surprised. I don't know how I did that, Mira said, breathless. But he did. The markings, the machines, the fear of her power. It was all real. Inside the door was a cold stairway leading underground. They followed it into the dark, the door closing behind them. Darren looked back once, knowing they had just stepped into something far bigger. Beside him, Mira tightened her veil again. But this time, he had already seen enough to know. There was something powerful behind the fabric, something the galaxy feared, and he, for the first time, was ready to protect it. The stairs led them deeper underground. Each step echoed in the silence like a heartbeat in stone. Mira walked slowly, still holding Darren's hand. Her veil moved with each breath, hiding her face but not her fear. At the bottom, they found an old tunnel, half lit by glowing moss and broken lights. It smelled of dust, metal, and memories. This place is older than the market, Darren said, touching the cracked wall. Mira nodded. It was part of the city before the sky turned red. They moved carefully, passing rusted doors and old machines. Some sparked as Mira walked by, reacting to her presence. It was like the tunnel knew her, remembered her. The markings on her hands glowed faintly again. Suddenly, a soft beep echoed behind them. Darren turned fast, gun ready. A small flying drone hovered at the tunnel entrance, scanning the air. Its red eye blinked once, then flared bright. They found us, Mira whispered. Darren pulled her forward. Run! They ran through the tunnel, boots slamming on metal floors. Behind them, the drone called for others. More lights appeared in the distance. Mira's breath grew short, but she didn't stop. Darren found a ladder and climbed up first. He reached down, grabbed her arm, and pulled her up fast. They burst through a hatch into the open air, into a storm. The sky above was thick with red clouds, lightning flashing inside. Rain fell, but it was heavy, warm, almost oily. We need shelter, Darren shouted over the wind. Mira pointed toward a dark shape in the distance. A crashed ship, she said, barely heard. They ran again, leaning into the wind as sand and rain whipped their faces. Darren kept his arm around her, shielding her from the worst of it. They reached the ship, broken in half but still large enough to hide. Inside, the air was dry, filled with dust. Mira collapsed near the control panel, coughing. Darren shut the hatch and dropped. Ped beside her. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. I'm just tired. As she caught her breath, the control panel lit up slowly. Words in a strange language scrolled across the screen. The ship was waking up. Mira stood slowly, her hand drawn to the panel. The moment she touched it, the entire room pulsed with blue light. Welcome, Royal Signature detected, the ship spoke in a calm voice. Darren's eyes widened. You can control this thing, Mira shook her head. I didn't do anything. But the ship knew her. It called her Royal. It opened a map, showing distant stars and locked locations. "Mira," Darren said carefully, "this ship thinks you're someone important." "I'm not," she replied quickly, stepping back. But deep inside, a memory stirred, an image of stars, of voices calling her name in another language. "I don't want this," she said. "I just want to be free." Suddenly, alarms blared. The ship had detected more incoming drones. "They're outside," Darren said, looking at the blinking screen. "We can't run again," Mira whispered. Darren looked at her, then at the control panel. "Then we fly," he said. Mira hesitated. "I've never done this before." "You didn't know you could open doors either," he replied. Mira touched the panel again, this time with both hands. Her markings flared bright blue, and the ship responded. Engines roared to life, lifting the broken body of the vessel into the air. Outside, drones chased the rising light, but it was too late. Mira and Darren flew into the storm, rising above the city of fear. For the first time, she wasn't hiding, and for the first time, he wasn't alone. The ship flew low through the storm, shaking with every blast of wind. Mira sat in the pilot's seat, eyes wide, hands trembling over the controls. Darren stood beside her, ready to steady the ship, or her, if either began to fall. The lights inside flickered, reacting to Mira's touch like the ship was alive. "Where do we go now?" she asked, her voice thin. Darren scanned the console. "We head south, across the burning fields. No patrols there." Mira nodded, guiding the ship toward darkness. Outside, red clouds parted slightly, giving a glimpse of stars above. Inside the ship, the walls pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Every few seconds, the ship whispered words Mira couldn't understand. The language felt familiar, like something from a dream she'd forgotten. Darren watched her closely, noticing how the blue glow on her skin grew brighter. "You're changing," he said softly. Mira looked down at her glowing arms. "I don't know what I'm becoming." Darren moved closer, his voice calm. "Whatever it is, it's not bad." "You say that now," she replied, "but you haven't seen what's under the veil." He tilted his head. "Then show me." She pulled away, stepping back, her breath quickening. "No," she whispered. "You'll leave like everyone else." Darren didn't reach for her, didn't rush. Instead, he sat down quietly and said, "I'm not leaving." Silence filled the room except for the soft hum of the ship. Then slowly, with shaking hands, Mira reached up. She untied the faded strings that held her veil in place. The cloth slipped from her face and floated to the floor. Darren looked up, then froze. Her face was glowing with soft blue lines that moved like rivers under her skin. Symbols danced across her forehead, her cheeks, even her eyelids. Her eyes were silver, with a galaxy swirling inside them. She wasn't just beautiful, she was something entirely other, something not made for this woe. Mira lowered her head, ready for rejection, but Darren didn't look away. He didn't flinch, didn't breathe. He just stared and whispered, "You're the most incredible thing I've ever seen." Mira blinked in shock. "You're not afraid?" "No," he said. "I'm stunned, but not afraid." "I've seen weapons, monsters, and cruel men," he continued, "but you're a miracle." Her hands covered her face again, not in shame, but from emotion. "No one ever said that to me," she whispered. "I see you now, Mira," he said, "and I won't forget it." The ship's voice returned, louder this time. Royal blood confirmed, navigation unlocked. A new map unfolded on the screen, showing a hidden place marked only as Vault of the Skyborn. Mira stared at it, heart pounding. "I've heard that name," she said, "from the stories they whispered when they thought I was sleeping." "It's where the old rulers hid during the last Great War," Darren nodded. "Then maybe it holds answers about you." Suddenly the ship shook, alarms ringing again. Enemy craft had found them, fast and angry. Darren jumped to the side guns, charging the defense systems. Mira grabbed the wheel, her face no longer afraid. This time she didn't hide. This time her veil was gone, and she wasn't putting it back. She pulled the ship into a dive, lightning flashing around them, and for the first time, she felt free. Behind her, Darren smiled. Whatever secrets the veil had hidden were now out in the open, and he wasn't running. He was flying beside her. The night sky above them cracked with thunder as the ship flew through the clouds. Mira's fingers moved across the glowing controls like she had done this her whole life. Darren stood by the window, watching the enemy craft close in from behind. 4 dark ships with sharp wings chased them through the storm. "They're not bounty hunters," Darren said. "They're elite, military." Mira's face was calm now, even as fear stirred in her chest. "They're not here to capture," she said quietly. "They're here to erase me." Darren turned to her, surprised. "Why?" he asked. "What threat are you to them?" Mira's eyes flickered with that strange silver light. "My blood doesn't just belong to the old royal line," she said. "It comes from the first queen, the one who united 3 star systems under peace. But peace was broken by jealous elders who wanted control. They erased her memory from history," Mira whispered, "and anyone who carried her legacy. And now, I'm proof she existed." Darren clenched his jaw. "So they'll kill you just to protect a lie?" She nodded slowly. "That's why they called me unclean, because truth is dirty to liars." Outside, a blast rocked the ship, jolting them sideways. Warning lights turned red. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Darren rushed to the back controls, firing the ship's cannons blindly. "They're trying to disable us, not destroy us," he shouted. "They want to bring you back alive, so they can end you in silence." Mira didn't panic. She focused her energy through the ship's ancient systems. Symbols lit up on the control panel. Ones Darren couldn't read, but Mira spoke them aloud, and the ship responded like an obedient animal. Suddenly, the ship turned on its own, performing a sharp spin that shook the enemy. 2 enemy ships lost control and crashed into each other, exploding in flame. Mira's voice rose in command. "Shield pulse now, the shades." P released a shockwave of blue energy, sending the remaining ships flying backward. Silence followed, except for the heavy sound of their breathing. Mira leaned back in the pilot's chair, her body trembling from the effort. Darren moved to her side, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You saved us," he said. "No," Mira whispered. "She did." "She?" Darren asked, confused. Mira touched her chest. "The queen, the memory inside me. I don't know how, but she's waking up through me." Darren looked at her with awe. "You're not just her blood," he said. "You're her voice now." The ship entered calm skies again, stars blinking above. They passed over a silent desert glowing with crystals. The map guided them toward the vault of the Skyborn. But as they approached, another message blinked across the screen. "Elder Command Vessel en route. Prepare for surrender." Mira closed her eyes, her heart heavy. "They're not giving up," she said. "They'll come again, stronger." Darren knelt in front of her. "Then we don't run anymore. You said they fear you because you carry truth. Maybe it's time they heard it." Mira looked at him, her face full of light and pain. "Would you stay with me, even if it means war?" Darren smiled. "I didn't follow you this far just to say goodbye." As the vault appeared in the distance, an ancient tower rising from the sands, Mira stood tall in the cockpit, her veil gone, her face clear, and behind her, Darren stood ready, not as a protector anymore, but as her equal. The vault of the Skyborn stood tall in the desert like a blade piercing the sky, ancient, silent, untouched by time. As Mira and Darren's ship approached, the sands around it shifted unnaturally. A quiet energy filled the air, as if the desert was holding its breath. "This place feels alive," Darren whispered. Mira nodded. "The story said the vault holds the memories of those who came before." "If that's true," she added, "then it remembers the queen." They landed the ship near the base of the tower. Old stone steps stretched upward, glowing faintly under Mira's steps. The air around her changed, cooler, heavier, but familiar. Inside the vault, the walls shimmered with ancient lights, symbols rising and falling like waves. Voices whispered in forgotten language. Mira placed her hand on the stone door. It opened without a sound, welcoming her. Darren followed closely, every sense alert. They walked down a spiraling hall, deeper into the vault's heart, and then they stopped. In the center of the chamber stood a round platform, glowing softly. A console rose from it, waiting for Mira's touch. But before she could step forward, a voice echoed behind them. Quite a show, royal girl, it said, cold and sharp. Mira spun around, eyes wide. From the shadows stepped tall figures in silver armor. The Silver Fleet's elite. Dozens surrounded the chamber, guns ready, helmets reflecting Mira's light. It was a trap, Darren growled, pulling out his weapon. The lead soldier removed his helmet, revealing a scarred alien face. You were always meant to come here, he said, but not to rise, only to end. Mira backed away slowly, her hand finding Darren's. You were watching us, she whispered, even in the storm. The soldier smiled cruelly. Of course, this vault was the bait. The Queen's blood always seeks this place, he said, and we knew the moment it woke up. Mira's eyes burnt. Ned with anger. I'm not a thing to be hunted, she said, voice steady. You're not the only one with memory, the soldier sneered. We remember the wars she caused. She brought peace, Mira snapped. To you maybe, he replied, but peace for one is loss for another. She made people kneel, he added, and we won't kneel again. Darren stepped in front of Mira. She's not your queen. She's her own, he said firmly. The soldier raised his hand, and the troops aimed their weapons. Then both of you die as rebels, he said. But Mira didn't step back. She stepped forward, standing on the glowing platform. The console lit up instantly, and the vault walls trembled. A blast of light surged through the room, pushing back the soldiers. Mira's body lifted slightly, her markings glowing bright blue. The Queen's voice spoke through her, deep and powerful. You erase truth, but truth always returns. The Silver Fleet staggered, their suits failing from the energy burst. Darren grabbed Mira as she collapsed, catching her in his arms. The vault sealed its doors behind them, trapping the soldiers outside. Inside, Mira opened her eyes slowly. I felt her, she whispered. The first queen. She showed me everything. She never wanted war, Mira added. She wanted to guide, not rule. Darren helped her up. Then maybe it's time you show them what real power looks like. Mira looked toward the vault's glowing heart. A path had opened deeper inside, toward what the Queen left behind. They weren't finished. The trap had failed. Now, the real awakening had begun. The vault's heart glowed ahead, a spiral of ancient light waiting at the end of the path. Mira walked slowly, her steps unsure but her eyes steady. Darren followed behind her, scanning the walls that pulsed with memory. The chamber ahead was huge, round, and full of floating symbols spinning through the air like stars. As they stepped inside, the door behind them vanished into light. There was no turning back. In the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, flat and silent. Mira reached toward it, her fingers trembling. The moment she touched it, the world changed. A wave of light swallowed her, pulling her mind into another place. She floated in silence, stars all around. Then she saw her, the first queen, not as a ghost, not as a dream, but as a memory, full and real. The queen looked like her, only older, wiser, with eyes full of sadness. You carry my voice, the queen said, but you must carry your own strength too. Mira's voice broke. Why me? Because they tried to bury the truth, the queen answered, but truth finds a way through blood, through breath, through belief. You are my legacy, but you are not my shadow. Mira fell to her knees, her body shaking. I'm not strong, she whispered. I've only run. The queen smiled gently. And yet you lived, and you chose kindness, even when the galaxy chose cruelty. That is true power. Back in the real chamber, Darren stood by Mira's body, watching as her skin lit with a soft golden blue glow. Her breath was slow, steady, like she was dreaming deep. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood guard, waiting. After what felt like forever, Mira's eyes opened, but they were no longer just hers. A deeper light flickered behind them, calm and ancient. Mira? Darren asked, unsure. She looked at him and smiled. It's me. But something inside me has awakened, she added. I saw everything, the wars, the betrayal, the lies they built on her ashes. She loved them, Mira said softly, and they destroyed her because she refused to control them. Darren stepped closer. And what will you do now? Mira stood slowly, taller than before. I won't rule, she said, but I will speak. I will show the galaxy that truth has a face, and it is not afraid anymore. Suddenly, A new light formed in the center of the room. A silver crown floated upward, made of pure energy, pulsing gently. Mira reached out and touched it, but it didn't rest on her head. Instead, it dissolved into her skin, joining with her completely. The vault accepted her, not as a queen to command, but as a voice to restore. She turned to Darren, her face soft again. "Are you still with me?" she asked. He smiled. "I was with you when you were hunted. I'll be with you now that they'll listen." The walls of the chamber opened slowly, revealing the world outside. The Silver Fleet had returned, surrounding the vault. Their ships hovered, waiting for a signal to strike, but Mira walked out first, light glowing from her skin, her face uncovered, her steps calm. Behind her, Darren stood like a shield, and the vault behind them shined like a star reborn. Above them, the sky shifted. Ships paused. The air felt different now. The Queen wasn't just a memory, she was standing here and her voice was ready to be heard. Mira stepped out of the vault with the rising sun behind her. Her feet touched the sand, but her presence felt like sky. The Silver Fleet's warships hovered above, ready to strike, but none of them moved. The glow from Mira's body was no longer just light. It was recognition. Every scanner on every ship confirmed the impossible. Royal signature, verified. Lineage confirmed. The soldiers who came to destroy her now stood frozen, confused. Darren stood beside her, watching with narrowed eyes. "They don't know what to do," he said. "They thought you'd run again." Mira looked ahead with calm eyes. "Not anymore," she whispered. A voice came from the fleet above, broadcast across the land. "This is Elder Commander Rathor," it said. "You are ordered to surrender and return to judgment." Mira stepped forward, lifting her chin. "My judgment comes from truth, not lies," she called out, her voice echoing like thunder. There was silence. Then a different signal broke through, a much older voice, cracked with time. "The throne is awakening," it said. The clouds above began to shift, revealing something massive hidden behind them. An ancient city, floating in the sky, slowly became visible. Crystal towers, glowing bridges, and light paths connected a forgotten world once ruled by peace. The throne of light, lost for 1,000 years, had responded to her presence. It was waiting for her return. Mira took Darren's hand. "I need to go up there," she said. "Alone." Darren didn't argue. He simply nodded. "Then I'll wait right here until you come back." A beam of soft light came down from the sky city. It touched Mira's chest, wrapping her in golden threads. She rose slowly, her feet lifting from the sand. Her body floated upward, drawn by the throne itself. As she disappeared into the clouds, the Silver Fleet didn't dare shoot. They had no orders for this. They were watching history. I unfold. And history didn't fear bullets. Inside the throne chamber, Mira landed gently on polished stone. It was silent, beautiful, almost sacred. A round seat made of light stood in the center, surrounded by flowing rivers of memory. Every step she took played a whisper, a song, a forgotten voice. She approached the throne, her hands open. The seat did not demand her to sit. It offered her a choice. Mira stood there for a long time. "I am not the queen you remember," she spoke to the throne. "But I carry her kindness, her will, and her broken heart. I will not rule through fear," she said. "I will guide through truth." The throne pulsed with bright silver light. Then it dissolved, turning into 1,000 lights that swirled around her. Each one entered her body like a blessing. She was now the living connection to everything the throne once protected. Back on the ground, Darren watched the sky city shine brighter than ever. Then the light beam returned. Mira descended slowly, her eyes now clearer, her body glowing gently like the stars. The moment her feet touched the sand, the warships above began to lower their weapons. Elder Commander Rathor appeared again, his voice shaking. "We await your orders, Queen Mira." But she didn't respond with commands. She looked to the people, soldiers, merchants, outcasts, and watchers, and said, "I don't want your fear, I want your honesty." "I'm not your queen," she added. "I'm your mirror." And that day, without a crown, without an army, Mira stood taller than any ruler ever had. Peace did not come easily. Even as Mira descended from the Sky City, even as the Silver Fleet lowered their weapons, not all hearts bowed. Some watched from the shadows. Old leaders, bitter elders, warlords who had thrived during the Queen's silence. To them, Mira's rise was not a return of light. It was a threat to their power. The floating throne city glowed above the desert now, visible across nations. People from all corners of the system began arriving, hoping for guidance. Some came with respect, others with doubt, and hidden among them were those who came with knives. Darren stayed close to Mira at all times. He could feel the tension in the air. Every smile they received was mirrored by a whisper behind their backs. "She's too young," some said. "She's too human now," others sneered. "They say she let a human touch the Queen's legacy." Mira heard it all but never stopped walking. Her face remained calm, but Darren knew her heart was heavy. She didn't want to be worshipped. She only wanted to be seen, fully, truthfully. Then the bombs began. Small explosions in refugee camps, a failed assassination during a speech. Messages were painted in blood across walls. "We kneel to no queen." The elders had formed a hidden army, a last resistance. They called themselves the Purity Circle. They spread lies fast, saying Mira was born of broken blood, that she was a false heir who dared to love a human. Darren offered to hunt them, but Mira refused. "No," she said. "They want war. I want to offer them choice." She sent messages across the systems, inviting all leaders, friend or foe, to gather at the Sky Throne, a meeting of truth, a moment for them to speak and to listen. But the Purity Circle did not come with words. They came with fire. As the gathering began, ships appeared in the sky, black, sharp, silent. Warlords who once ruled in secret now marched in the open. "This is it," Darren said, standing beside Mira on the tower balcony. "They've chosen to fight." Mira looked at the sky, then at the people below her. Innocents, elders, orphans, traitors, soldiers, all watching her in silence. "I will not fight them with death," she said. "Then how?" Darren asked. "They're ready to burn the stars to stop you." Mira stepped forward, raised her hands, light poured from her palms, not as a weapon, but as memory. Images filled the sky. Of the first queen, her kindness, her betrayal, her dream. The truth was no longer hidden in vaults. It was floating in the air for all to see. The enemy ships paused. Some pilots trembled. Some wept. Warlords who grew up on lies suddenly saw the truth burned into the sky. One ship fired. The beam hit the Sky Throne's shield and vanished. No retaliation came. Mira simply said, "You can kneel or you can walk away." Half the fleet turned back. Others lowered themselves to the ground and removed their weapons. The war had not been won by force. It was broken by truth. Darren placed his hand on Mira's shoulder. "You didn't fight like a queen," he said. "No," she replied. "I fought like me." And as the throne floated silently above them, the galaxy took its first breath of peace in 1,000 years. The war did not end in fire. It ended in stillness. No grand explosions, no shattered cities, just silence and a queen who refused to wear a crown made of fear. Mira stood at the balcony of the Sky Throne, her long cloak flowing behind her. The storm was gone. The enemy ships had vanished. Below her, thousands had gathered. Aliens, humans, forgotten tribes, and outcasts. All of them watched her, not with terror, but with hope. The veil that once hid her face was gone forever. It lay folded in her chambers, not as shame, but as a memory. She wore no jewels, no armor, no titles, only the light of truth on her skin and the strength in her eyes. Darren stood beside her, not as her guard, not as her knight, but as the man who saw her before the galaxy did, the one who found her behind the curtain starving and small and never looked away. "Will they believe?" he asked her softly. Mira looked out at the crowd. "Some will," she said. "Others will need time. But that's the gift truth gives. It doesn't rush." She raised her hand and the crowd grew quiet. "I am not your ruler," she said, her voice calm and deep. "I am not your goddess or your judge. I am the child who was hidden because I carried a story they feared. And now," she continued, "I carry that story with pride. Not to control, but to remind you, every life matters no matter how small, broken, or strange." Tears filled eyes in the crowd, eyes that had been beaten, shamed, ignored. Her words were not for lords and generals, they were for the beggars, the dirty children, the ones who once called themselves unclean. She opened the gates of the throne city, not for armies, but for healers, builders, singers, and dreamers. She made homes for the lost, food for the starved, schools for those who had never read their names out loud. The Queen's court was not made of gold. It was built with stories, every one. Painted with the names of those forgotten, and at the center of it all, Mira walked every day, veilless, proud and smiling. Darren stayed near her always, sometimes quiet, sometimes laughing, sometimes scolding her when she forgot to rest. He never asked for a title, but the people called him the first one who believed. One evening, as stars bloomed above them, Mira sat on a ledge outside her room. Darren brought her warm tea, sat beside her and asked, "Do you miss who you were?" Mira looked up at the stars. "Sometimes," she said, "the girl in the market had no weight to carry. But she also had no voice," she added, "no hand to hold." She turned to him, her silver eyes soft. "You gave me both," she said. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "And you gave me a reason to stay." They sat in silence, watching the galaxy breathe again. A world once ruled by fear now healed slowly, because one girl said, "I'm not clean." And one man saw her, and stayed. The veil was gone, the lie was broken, and in its place stood truth, beautiful, glowing, and finally free.